You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live.
Hello and welcome to Garibaldi Red, Nottingham Forest podcast, Nottinghamshire Live. My name is Matt Davis, hosting as usual, and I'm joined by Reds legend Garry Birtles today. Garry, good morning even. How are you?
Are you wishing the day away already?
No, I'm just an idiot. And coming back to the podcast is Forza of Garibaldi co-founder Greg Mitchell. Greg, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Very well.
Good. Well, as I said to you both, we'll do the podcast a little bit differently because Forest seem to have ascended into kind of a lower mid-table mediocrity. So we'll talk a bit of current events and then we're going to do something a bit different and talk about our favourite Forest 11s and what it's been like with a year without football. So we'll come to that later, but we will start with talking about current events as usual. Greg, you watched in full on iFollow Forest's draw with Reading at the weekend. What did you make of it? A good point or 2 points dropped?
2 points dropped again. I mean, it was a promising start. It was great to see Lolly, reach some form of previous years. And I mean, I was gutted for him when he went off, but it doesn't sound too serious. Obi was doing okay. Goalkeeping error again cost us a point. I did feel for him, but we've really got to iron those mistakes out for next season. And I don't know, it's just another point towards kind of like limping towards the end of the season and ready for next year, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, Garry, you saw just the highlights of the basics of the game. You mentioned before you were disappointed in the goal Forest conceded.
Yeah, not just the goalkeeper. It should have been stopped before it got to the goalkeeper. It was too easy. That ball that was played in between the centre halves, it got there too easy. The move was allowed to be completed more easily than it should have been. And then, to compound things at the end, the goalkeeper made a mistake. He doesn't make many mistakes. Still think he's one of the better goalkeepers in the championship. But it's, before the ball was kicked, I think if you'd have said, we'll take a point, I'd have been happy with that, the way things are going at the moment. Because the run we're on at the moment, we've not been battered by anybody. We're getting close to teams. But it's that final third again. We just cannot make it count, where it should count. The irony of all this now is, if there's another own goals are our top scorer.
No, they are top scorers, isn't it?
Joint top scorer, aren't they? With Lyle Taylor, he's got 4, and own goals have got 4, I think.
Or it might be 5. I don't know. It's not a good debate to have either way, is it?
No. If own goals are your highest scorer. And
True.
That, again, highlights, where the problem lies. At the back, again, we don't look overly bad. I think we've mentioned it last time on the podcast. Defensively, we're looking okay. We've conceded less goals than Brentford, I think, still. And they're where they are. So, a point was, for me, a half-decent result.
It was a good goal by Forest, though, in a sense, wasn't it? Because Murray did put pressure and make it difficult for the defender, and it was good wing play from Obi off a good ball by Garner to give Forest credit, Garry.
Obi, he showed strength, desire, and you're right, Murray causes those sort of problems in the box. He makes it uncomfortable for defenders, and if you put the right ball, I've said this time and time again, if you put the ball in early in the right areas, not necessarily will you get on the end of it, but a defender from the opposition might get on the end of it and do what he did. The longer you delay getting the ball in the box, people can set themselves a little bit better. By getting it in early, you catch defenders unaware, and then there's a little bit of panic, and that's what happens. Even at the highest level, that can happen. West Ham conceded, an own goal, but that's pressure against Man United. So get it in early.
You've been a big advocate of Obi, Garry, throughout. He's out of contract in the summer. You'd like to see him stay and get at least another year?
I've been an advocate of him because he looks like he can make something happen when he picks it up. I think we try and do at times a little bit too much in and around the box. We try and be too precise. We try and pick the perfect pass. We look up and try and pick somebody out when we shouldn't be doing it. We should just put it in an area. And if nobody gets in there, that's their fault. Not your fault. You've delivered the quality. Don't try and pick anybody out. Just put it in an area where it's uncomfortable for defenders.
Mm-hmm. Would you want to see him stay, Greg? Maybe not as a first choice, but at least as a squad player.
I would, because I don't think it's hard, and I'm sure we will buy decent players, but we're not going to be able to spend ridiculous money. And it seems each year that goes by, we get some great sale in. We'll sell a cash for 16 million, or previous years, other players for 10 million, or what have you. And that little pocket of players with a lot of money is going now. And I worry that a Worrell or a player like that is going to have to be sold. So yeah, I would keep our players that have been playing consistently this year, like Amiobi, especially because I think it's going to be a much harder transfer window. It can't be like previous years. I think it's 3 or 4 decent additions and then stick with the core of what we've got.
Yeah, I mean, we had Kieran Maguire on last week talking about Forest finances and how he thinks that they might have to sell a Worrell and then be quite smart in the transfer market. But in a way, Gary, that's kind of what you want to see, isn't it? Not Worrell going, but you might only want to see 4 or 5 decent acquisitions come in the summer.
I wouldn't want to see Worrell going, without a doubt.
No.
He's been the one shining light for me. I just love the way he goes about the game, his passion. He's vocal. He's not afraid to come out and say things when they need saying. Which, not nastily, but he comes out and when he's not happy with things, he'll let people know he's not happy. And I like to see that. You want to see your whole team have a little bit of that in them. And he is a leader. And that partnership he struck up with McKenna when McKenna came in, unfortunately, he got injured, looked particularly good. You want to keep your best players, but obviously you go back to when the Paul Hart, was in the academy. That generation of players would have stayed had Forest been successful, but they weren't, and they had to get rid of them. Genus, Michael Dawson, they all had to be sold, and the club said that. But what I think you've got to realise now, the owner is doing a magnificent job, keep bankrolling the club. The money he's putting in there is just fantastic. Any other club, you'd be struggling. So you've got to be massively grateful that he's still bankrolling Nottingham Forest, the wages and everything without crowds. And, he deserves to be applauded for that.
Yeah, Richard Ottaway points out one of the big figures from the accounts about £148 on wages for every £100 coming into the club. So they are very much reliant on Evangelos Marinakis. I suppose, Greg, what we'd like to see as fans, and Gary as a former player, is when they do spend the money, they need to perhaps spend it a bit more wisely now, don't they, on players?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's all right selling Worrell. Say, I don't know how much Worrell's worth. Say he's worth 10 million. There's no point then buying 2 mediocre £5 million players. For me, Worrell's already in the squad. Offer him the club captaincy. He deserves the club captaincy, I believe. I found it strange against Reading how we gave Graben the captaincy when he came back on. I'd have gave it McKenna for the match. He started as captain. He should finish as captain. And I do think when Worrell and Graben are both playing, it should be Joe that gets the captaincy. And I know that's a conversation for pre-season, but for me, offer him something. He's going to be tempted by teams like Burnley. Is Matt gone, is he?
He has a nightmare, doesn't he? He's just going round in circles at the moment.
Yeah, it's just me and you then. But I just think it's going to be a real tough pre-season. I can't see how we can spend without selling. And I don't know, it'll be a shame to see him go, and I can't see who else is going to be sold.
There's a hell of a lot of dead wood in the squad at the moment. So you just hope they can sort that out and they can get rid of a lot of the players that aren't going to focus at all in Chris's plans.
Yeah,
Chris has got to be given the opportunity to say, right, I'll go out and get the players I want to bring in, and then if it goes wrong, it's on his back. He has picked the players, he has brought the players in, and then it'll be all down to him, and he'll accept that. If it doesn't work, then you'll say, right, okay, I did bring the players in. It hasn't worked, but he's got to be given the opportunity. I don't think we're a million miles away, because if you get it right defensively and you build on that, you've got a massive opportunity. It's just that goal scorer. I mean, we're in March now, going towards April, and our top scorer is 4 goals.
Yeah,
You know,
and he rarely plays as well.
And with that, normally you'd be bottom of the league. You know, with your top scorer with 4. So we're getting quite a bit right, but we've got to get that. You know, goals always win your games. Goals always get you promoted. Goals win your competitions. You know, not 0-0s don't win you. You know, they don't get you promoted. They don't get you involved in the playoffs. And that is the one thing that has to be addressed more than anything else.
Hello, sorry.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I assume you held the fort professionally there. No, I don't know what happened. Wi-Fi, but I'll be on the phone to Sky after this. Other brands are available. Where were you? What were you talking about? And I'll jump in.
Just we were still pretty much on the Worrell debate and how we're gonna buy in pre-season. And Garry was just saying about how goals are gonna get us promoted and win us things, and we just haven't got that at the minute. So we need to concentrate on.
Anybody in any league, that's what gets you, whether it's Long Eaton United, who I used to play for, or Long Eaton Rovers on a Sunday afternoon, I used to play for. Goal scorers won your games. They got you in contention. But 4 goals from the top scorer ain't going to get you anywhere. And Chris knows that, crikey. Everybody just looks at that column and thinks, oh, my word, that has got to massively improve. And, the quality's got to be better in that final third, I think. I think, like I say, we try and do too much when we get there. Knockouts, he gets in there in good areas, but I think he tries and overdoes it. He overdoes things at times. Tries to do one trick, maybe too many. And, defenders close you down if you do that. So, decision making is so important in that final third. I played with the genius of John Robertson and Martin O'Neill on the other side. Where they got to an area, they just put the ball in an area where if you didn't get there, me or Tony, then that was our fault, not their fault. They delivered. And, we were massively grateful that happened because we keep getting chances. At the moment, it has improved. You kept reading the column of shots and shots on target, and there was no shots on target. At least we are getting a few on target at the moment. That has improved. But we just can't, get that end product at the moment that is so important.
One thing you said before I rudely disappeared was about Worrell being forthright. Would you mind that as a player, him coming out in the media and, he's quite blunt in his interviews, which we like and fans like. How do you think players react to that, Gaz?
They might react a little bit differently now. I liked it when, somebody said something, you could do this better, you could do that better. All through my career, I think I helped it when I was at Grimsby with the younger players. If it's constructive, then it's okay. If it's vindictive, it's not okay. It's called passion. It's because you want to win. It's because you want to be successful. Nothing wrong with that. And then, players have got to accept it. The first thing you have to do as a player is look at yourself and don't blame other people. Look at yourself and think, well, could I have done better? Perhaps I could, yeah, and accept it. Don't just think it's somebody else's fault and blame somebody else. It can be somebody else's fault, but you look at yourself first and say, could I have done better? That's what I always did. And, I was my biggest critic. If I went back and picked my way through what went on in, every game. Sometimes, when I especially was at Man United, it was difficult because you were doing the right things but not scoring.
If Worrell were to go, Greg, would you be quite comfortable with a McKenna-Figueiredo partnership? Did you see something there against Reading?
Yeah, I mean, they're two good for the Championship. They're two very good defenders. I just really hope Worrell doesn't go because McKenna hasn't really proved his fitness this year so far. And, if he was to get a long injury next year, then we're struggling again, aren't we? I was just trying to think then, like, who else? If players do have to be sold, like who else do we get money for? And then again, you're looking at our brilliant academy to help us out, and players like Mighton. It's hard to say how much he is worth or how much he could be worth in the future, but he's the obvious one that sticks out for me. And I don't want to see anyone go, but I do think Worrell, staying has to be a priority for us, especially if we want to give it a proper go next season. And that's the only reason Chris Hughton decided to take the job, surely.
Well, let's just hope that Burnley won't come in for him now, because they've improved. They won at Everton at the weekend. They've trouble a little bit. Sean Dyche and Woney doing a fabulous job there again. To keep Burnley in the Premier League is just incredible what they've done.
In the short term, then, like we said before, Forest are just edging very slowly towards 50 points, and there looks to be 3 worst teams or 4 or 5 worst teams. Do either of you have any worries they could get sucked into a final relegation battle, Garry?
You always worry until you're safe. It's like the Premier League, 40 points, that magic number that they always say that you're going to be safe. At the moment, you look at the bottom of the Championship, unfortunately, Wickham look like they're spent, but they won at the weekend. They got a win. Sheffield Wednesday were beating Norwich, deservedly so, until, the quality came through from Norwich. And, that was a big sigh of relief that Norwich did us a favour. Birmingham are still massively struggling. So that's the one big, plus at the moment, that there are teams down there who have got to win so many games, maybe to get out, and we lose every game to get past us. But it just sticks in my mind from last season. We looked done and dusted to be in the playoffs, and we all know what happened. So I'm taking nothing for granted. 2 more wins, and you'd say, right, okay, we should be. If anybody comes and gets past us with our extra 6 points, then they deserve to massively. We talked about the run of the games we'd got coming a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, Matt? And it didn't look particularly bright. Because the teams that we were playing are in contention, and we've got Norwich coming up. That's always going to be difficult. They're full of invention. The quality they have in midfield and wide areas. The fullbacks get forward really well. Of course, Pukki, he plays that lone role incredibly well. It didn't work, I don't think, in the Premier League for them, but it works in the Championship. Because if you're playing one up front and you're down in a game, and you take Pukki off and put another striker on, and a lone striker. That's what they kept doing in the Premier League, and that's why they got relegated. They didn't mix it up and try something different. But in the Championship, because the levels are a little bit worse than they are in a lot worse than they are in the Premier League, you can get away with things like that.
Norwich and Brentford then this week, Greg. Not really a free hit because nothing is in this league. But how are you viewing these 2 games this week? We lost Greg. See if Greg comes back.
He has. He's frozen.
He's frozen. How are you viewing these games this week, Garry, against Norwich and Brentford?
It's a no-brainer, really. You just go out and put your A game in there. Don't be frightened of them. If you go in there worried and frightened about them, yes, they're good teams, but we've done well against Brentford before. We've done well against West Broms and the Leeds and everybody. We've said this before. Don't respect your opposition, but don't be afraid of them, because they sense that. Just play your A game, be solid, do the basics particularly well, and when you get the opportunity, when you get around the box, make the decisions a little bit better.
Who do you think is going down? Because Birmingham have, they haven't officially sacked Karanka or parted company with Karanka, I should say. So who would be your 3 to go down right now?
Well, unfortunately, you have to say Wickham, or to be still in contention. No disrespect intended at all, but when you looked at at the start of the season, people would have said, right, Wickham, would go down possibly because small budget coming up, and they've done magnificently to still be in contention. To maybe it's going to take a bit of a miracle to get out of it. So you'd put them there. Sheffield Wednesday although they did play well against Norwich, you have to say, first half they were the better team. So they could maybe surprise if they put 3 wins together. You don't know. Birmingham are the ones who just seem to be getting sucked massively into it. And Derby as well. We've not mentioned Derby. Got beat at home by Millwall. So their fans will be a little bit concerned about it. And the last thing we want is, Derby and Forest to go out the Championship. I do think both teams have got enough to be okay, but both teams, got to start producing it. And, I'm sure Derby fans are as maybe more worried than Forest fans at the moment, but because they can't score goals either. You know, it's a East Midlands thing at the moment. Derby and Forest cannot score goals. So you know, that is a little bit of a concern. But it's always awful to rely on other teams to help you out. You know, you've got to do it yourself. Don't keep looking for results. You know, that's paramount.
True. Greg's rebooting his broadband. He'll be back shortly. It's a bad day for Sky all round because he's got Sky broadband as well. How against Norwich then? Would you go at them? Do you think if you were Houghton? Or
yeah. What's the point sitting back? You know, take the game to them. Press high. You know, Pookie's up there by himself. You know, so centre half. He's an excellent player. He's an excellent finisher. His movement around the box is excellent. You know, not extravagant, easy for me to say, but it's good. You know, and it's difficult to sometimes play against that sort of a player. But, you know, press them high up. Don't allow them to come at you because they come at you with pace, you know, from all angles, all areas. You know, we saw that against Sheffield Wednesday. You know, I kept switching over to that and having a look. And, you know, Cantwell, he's an obvious star. The goal he scored was absolutely superb on his weaker foot. So, you know, try and nullify that threat by being a threat yourself. You know, don't be, you know, a lapdog and just sit back and try and defend and, you know, get a point out of it. You know, get on the front foot, make it difficult for them, because Sheffield Wednesday did that. You know, they got on the front foot, they pressed them high, but you have to do it for 90 minutes. And that's not always easy. You know, they're not 10 points clear for nothing. They've got a very talented team, a very young team, and a very enthusiastic team. And they'll be difficult to, you know, hold down. But, you know, we've got decent players in there. But it's, again, I keep saying decision making. Do things better in and around the box. Do it quicker. Don't put it in areas. You know, you don't have to pick an area out. You know what areas you have to deliver in, you know, the danger areas. So don't look, just do it.
There's one point in debate I wanted to ask you about fans have written off Bong as left back, and he does seem to be perhaps favoured over Ribeiro by Chris Hughton. What do you think of Bong? Because fans have kind of thrown in the towel with him. Is he that bad or not?
I think he switches off a little bit. You know, I think his concentration lapses, and you know, no matter what standard you play at, you have a lapse in concentration, you get punished. I think he switches off, and you know, as a defender, you just can't afford to do that. But you know, Chris knows him. That's why Chris plays him. You know, he's had him, you know, as a manager before, and you know, you can't blame Chris because you trust people you've managed before, and it's understandable that he does that. But you know, if he's not playing particularly well, then you've got options. You know, you have to try them. But the one thing you want more than anything when you go into the end of the season and you're still in a little bit of trouble is a settled team. So I think that's what Chris is trying to do, maybe get a settled team rather than keep switching, changing. And yeah, so it's a conundrum for him that he's got to work out.
I mean, Ribeiro's out of contract and they've got Blackett on the books and Janu's still on the books, although he's out on loan. That left-back position's, you know, back to being one that has a bit of upheaval about it, you think?
Well, there again, people think fullbacks, you know, it's an easy position. You know, anybody can play, you know, fullbacks. No, they can't. You know, I've said this before. I played centre half towards the end of my career. I played at Forest under Brian. So I could cope with that. But I played the one time against Southampton. Piercy was injured, and the gaffer asked me, you know, Gaz, will you play left back tonight? And I said, yeah, why not? Thinking, it's going to be okay. Danny Wallace, Southampton, flying machine. He turned me inside out. Didn't know where I was coming or going. Didn't know what I was doing. And eventually, my number came up because it was a windy night. The ball, I went to head it. The wind got it, and it bounced in front of me and smashed me straight in the face. And that was it. The gaffer had enough. My number came up and I was off. So it's not an easy position, especially if you've got, you know, somebody against you who's prepared to take you on all the time, because then you're under, you know, constant pressure. And like I say, if you have lapses in concentration, you're going to get found out.
Yeah, and the way teams play now, it's even more important, isn't it? Because wingers do tend to go inside quite a lot more. Fullbacks have to provide the width a lot more, like Matty Cash did last season.
Well, I think, you talk about Matty Cash. Everybody was thinking, well, how's he going to do in the Premier League? I think, he's answered people's questions there. When he's been in there, he's done particularly well. And when he's been out, I think they've missed him. So I think he's really found his feet pretty quickly. And you don't always do that in the Premier League. So replacing somebody like him is never going to be easy because of, the quality he provided. He'd score goals, he'd create goals. He was quick, so defensively he could get back. And he's a big miss for Forest, without a doubt.
Last current question before I move on to what we were going to talk about for other stuff. Do you feel a bit sorry for Lolly? He seems to have found some form and then he's got injured again. It's not happened for him this year, has it?
No, it's just one of those years that, you've got to try and chalk off. Everybody's got to chalk it off in life. It's been a horrendous year because of the pandemic. It's a year since, the lockdown first started. It affects different people in different ways. Not everybody can cope with, how it's affecting life. It's very difficult. I mean, the discipline football gave me has helped me massively, to get through things. The discipline Brian and Peter gave you, the strength of mind has helped me in my situation massively. And you'll be forever thankful for that. But other people, suffer, and it's not as easy. People are losing their jobs. People, it's haven't got back gardens to go into. So, it can affect footballers just the same. People think, well, they're on a load of money, it's all right for them. But mental health's an issue that's so difficult to equate at times because the ones you think are strong and are going to be okay sometimes aren't. So my last Premier League game was last March. I was at Tottenham. I did Tottenham Wolves on March the 1st, and that's the last the Premier League game I did. So I remember for that reason. But yeah, it's we talk about Liverpool in the Premier League, how people are saying they've defended their title really badly. Maybe it's because it affects them because of no crowds. Manchester City have turned it around. Maybe, it suits them a little, but, how do you assess that? Who's going to be okay and who's going to cope with it better? You thought Liverpool would have been fine. How many home games have they lost this season? It's astounding. So it's an unprecedented time. It's been a terrible year again for everybody. And we just hope now we're coming out the back of it with a bit of luck. Never take anything for granted, and we'll see how everybody responds then. But going back to Joe, he's had a bit of stick. He went off the boil a little bit, maybe. And it's difficult to rebound sometimes, but hopefully that will happen. You can stay fit, and we'll just have to wait and see.
You can rest your voice for a minute now. Greg's back to bail you out. It's all right. We were talking there about the lack of crowds and everything. I mean, obviously, Greg, you go home and away. How's it been for you as a fan the last year, not actually going to games?
It's the best line I can say. It's the most important of unimportant things, isn't it? The weekend, the football, everything about it, not just the 90 minutes, because half the time that lets you down. But, especially the last few weeks after the Derby game, I got myself up for the Derby game, and when we scored, I cheered. But you watch games like the Reading game at the weekend, and when we scored, just sat on the sofa, barely lifted my arm. It's got to the point now where it's really starting to be. It's hard to keep following the games, especially the neutral games. I don't bother with hardly any of them now. It needs that passion from the fans, and the fans need to be there because it is a struggle. But there's loads of hope now. I think that the cricket will be an interesting one in the summer. We should be able to start being able to go to that, and that'll be a real tester. I think they've said the FA Cup game will be as well, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, look the England-India game.
Yeah,
The crowd were in there.
incredible.
How they're being let in there because India was having one of the worst times in the world with the pandemic. But all of a sudden, there's 60,000 in a stadium, which totally and utterly baffled me, and nobody seemed to question it.
No.
And I've been watching the golf at the weekend. The Players' Championship, loads of fans in there. Well, I think they let 5,000 in or something like that. But even then, you could hear, it lifted players when they'd done something well. When they'd sunk a 15, 20 footer, you could hear the crowd again. And it's so important, I think. And I think football has struggled. I've said this before. I think football has struggled more than any other sport for the lack of atmosphere. Because we all know how packed stadiums are fantastic. You get caught up in the game with the away fans, with the home fans, the noise. It's just incredible, and not to have it is very difficult. And like you, Greg, I find it difficult to watch football at the moment.
Me too.
I've got my my Sheffield Wednesday tickets are still on the fridge, and it was a year yesterday. It was March the 14th, where we should have obviously gone, and I think it's going to be 18 months, hopefully, all in all, until we can walk back into the ground. And I can just imagine walking back into the ground, the exact same people will be stood exactly where they were 18 months ago, and all will be well, and we'll probably have a miserable 1-0 loss and moan about it for the next 3 hours, and it'll be an amazing day. And
Look on the bright side.
Will you view it differently, Greg? In terms, will you view match days differently in terms of what they are for you?
It's going to be so easy to get back into the same old moaning about this, that, the other, but appreciate it a bit more. And if we do have a rubbish game and we don't play very well, just get ready for the next one as fans. And I know it's easy to say because we all love to moan, but definitely going to appreciate it a bit more. And I don't know if everybody's going to come back straight away, and you can understand totally why people wouldn't, but it's just going to be an amazing feeling walking to that ground again. And I can't wait.
The build up to the game as well. You're right. You met your mates for a pint and everything. When I was going to the games, it was great. I met up in the pubs around the place, and it was great to see people. And that part of it you miss, massively as well. That camaraderie between everybody. It's you miss that physical, sort of conversational moments you have before games. You discuss everything, and you have a really good good argument with each other. And I think everybody's missed that.
Yeah.
Just talking about enjoyment and what football means to us then, I asked you both, and I've done it as well, to pick our favourite Forest 11s in terms of the players that have kind of given us the most enjoyment, not necessarily the best players. So we'll go through them, and if people want to drop comments on each of them and drop their own favourite teams in, then we'll discuss a few of those and flash them on the team as well. Charles, I'll throw you under the bus first, Greg, and we'll go through your team, your favourite 11 that you sent in. Just bear with me for 1 second. Greg's team is here. Right, I'll read it out so people who are listening on iTunes can hear it and then be annoyed by it. So Greg has gone Mark Crossley in goal, a back four of Cash, Dawson, Walker and Pearce. And then four in midfield, Carvalho, Keane, Bohinen and Andy Reid. And then Mikel Antonio playing off Stan Collymore. Greg, talk us through that team. Why did you go for those 11?
I went with Bohinen because I used to love his song, and it's one of my memories sitting near the A block because I was too young listening to the Bohinen song. Pearce, obviously, you have to have him in. The way Cash is becoming a very good player, I couldn't not have him in. The goalkeeper I really struggled with because I suppose Crossley's I started watching in like 92. So Crossley really was the only choice, but still a very good choice. Dawson at his prime, maybe when he was with Spurs, and Walker together. I mean, Walker kind of bred Dawson through, didn't he? Those two are superb. Keane again had his best career after us, but what a player. And I put Carvalho in there, and I know I'll get a load of stick, but Carvalho playing around some of those great players, I think, would be super. And he's still so young, and he could still prove a lot of us wrong. So I'd just selfishly love to see him play in a stronger team. So that's why he's in there. Antonio is just a brilliant player, and Collymore, of my era, he should be in everyone's team. I don't even think it's a debate.
You like that team, Garry?
Yeah, I mean, I played with two of those players. I played with Piercy and Des. So I know the quality of those two players without a doubt. I like Bohinian. I like the way he played the game. He was terrific on the ball. He was very comfortable. Reedy, I mean, what a left foot he had. He was a delight to watch Reedy with that. Now then, go back and watch what Reedy did as well as John Robert. I mentioned John Robertson, but go back and see how Reedy delivered balls and when he delivered balls. He was that good with his left foot. So, Keane, I can understand, he, like you say, Greg, he made his name at Manchester United, but, we all saw him coming through at an early age and fully understand why he's there. It's so difficult, goalkeepers you mentioned. I mean, I played with so many. I played with Van Breukelen, Hans Sagers, Chris Woods, Steve Sutton, Schultz. I was very fortunate in that respect. All through my career, Notts County, I played with Mick Leonard. When I went to Grimsby, Steve Sherwood was the goalkeeper. So, I was so fortunate to play with so many great goalkeepers.
No one's commented on your team, Greg, which is, I think you'll take that as a good. Oh no, Cy Olsen, great team, Greg. There you go. By far the best player I've ever seen about Stan Collymore, which I would probably agree with. No anti-Carvalho comments. That's good. Right, I'm going to save yours till last, Garry, because I want to pick your brain about some other players who might have been in there, because obviously, like you say, you were spoiled for choice. We'll put my team up, and then we'll just go through that. I'll read it out. Excuse me. So it's Camping goal, Cash, Dawson, Walker and Pearce, the same back four as Greg. And then four in midfield, Steve Stone, Gareth Williams, Chris Cohen, Andy Reid, and then Collymore and David Johnson up front. So like Greg said, I kind of struggled with goalkeepers. I went with Camp because that season where we finished third, I thought Camp was brilliant. And that game against Derby springs to mind where he saved the penalty and then from the corner. And he looked like that season he was pretty untouchable, although I think over the longer term, obviously Crossley was a better keeper. Everything Greg said about the back four, the Dawson-Walker partnership under Paul Hart was kind of what I went for there, with the way Walker brought through Dawson and probably made him the player he is to a great extent today. I love Gareth Williams because he kind of made that Paul Hart team tick. And Greg, you should have put Chris Cohen in. I'm personally disappointed.
I had a subs bench and Stone and Cohen were on.
And like Garry said about Andy Reid, the best left foot I've seen in my time. Obviously, I didn't see John Robertson play in person, but certainly Reid was the magician of my era. Collymore, definitely the best player I've seen in person. He's like an absolute force of nature on his day. And David Johnson had that golden season in 2002, 2003, when it looked like we were going to go up, and then he got injured after that, which is very bad luck. So that's my team. Oh, there's 5 comments dropped in, so these are probably going to be all negative. There's people asking where's Ian Wone, which is a good shout.
He's on the subs bench.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great time as well. Yes, Cy Olsen pointing out that Keenan Bohinen would have had Williams and Cohen on toast. That is true, but it's my team, so that's fine. Garry, pull that team apart as an expert analysis. I don't think it's as strong as Greg's team as an 11, but a good team nonetheless. Yeah,
you look at it, and it is. You have got to pick your team from the best squad you've got at that particular moment. That happens in every era. I mean, Stan Collymore, for me, he's one striker I'd love to have played with. I'm just sorry he packed in, when he did. He had everything. He had pace. He had strength. I remember the goal. I was at the ground as a guest in the studio for Sky when he scored the goal against Man United in the Trent end. He had every attribute. Could have played for England for, quite a while, I think. But, it wasn't to be. But still, you take nothing away from that.
True. Let's go to your favourite Forest team then, Gary. And as you messaged me before this, you said it can be only one, and we'll talk around who the next best were. So I'm going to put it up and I'll read it out as before. So Gary's starting 11 would be Shilton in goal, Anderson, Burns, Lloyd, and Clark. Frank Clark, for those who are watching, looks like he's playing everyone on side there. I didn't really line that up very well, so sorry. Get up 2 yards, Frank.
Different rule in those days, though, wasn't it? Offside.
And then a midfield 4 of Martin O'Neill, John McGovern, Archie Gamble, and John Robertson. And then a front 2. I just kind of picked this for you a bit because you didn't really give me an exact 11. So I put yourself and Tony Woodcock up front, Gary. Talk to us. Who's take you out and put who in?
Well, I watched Peter With and the partnership he had with Tony Woodcock, and it was a terrific, partnership. Totally different players. Peter With great in the air, held the ball up well. Tony with his pace. It was a terrific partnership to watch and learn from. And I did learn from that partnership, I must admit. Collymore again. But I played with a guy called Clough, who I think was a little bit underestimated. He was some finisher, and he didn't have pace, but my word, could he finish? One of the most clinical finishers I think I've seen. And I played with Ian Wallace as well. We had a terrific partnership when he was there. People gave Wally stick, but again, he at that period he was a finisher and a half. So I was lucky to play with guys at Forest who, helped my game, and hopefully I could help theirs.
Yeah, I thought you might say Nigel Clough, even though he wasn't of your prime. I mean, do you think Nigel today, playing with number 10 so in vogue, I know he wore number 9, but that kind of deeper lying forward role that he played, would he have been even more successful today, do you think?
I think so. People forget when he went to Liverpool. He did very well at Liverpool as well. It still rankles that his dad gave him the number 9 shirt instead of me. But we remain great friends, and I always remind him of that. But yeah, he was what a first touch he had as well. And I've seen what he does. And he works with his players now. Concentrating on strikers getting their first touch right. But going to the team. I mean, how can I say any other team apart from that? Because the enormity of what happened at that particular point, what we won in those 4 or 5 years, is just staggering. Sorry, I keep moving here. I'm getting messages and missed calls and all sorts here. The enormity of, you look back at it now, and we all want the same to happen again at Forest. And, to be part of that, I couldn't really say anything else. I mean, I played with, you look at Franz Tyson, what a player he was. Johnny Metcott, what a player he was. I played with some terrific players, who've got so much ability. In Pete Davenport, don't forget about Pete Davenport. Steve Hodge, for Steve Hodge now, who go past the strikers. He wasn't the biggest, but my word, his desire and his strength and his belief was just incredible. And the goals he got from doing that. And we missed Ian Bowyer out as well.
Yes, yeah.
He was an incredible player. I wouldn't want anybody else in my team in that central area. When he was there, he was horrible to play against. He was hard as nails. If Souness went high, he'd go higher. And to have those sort of players in and around you to come in. David Needham, when he came in for either Larry or Frank, Colin Barrett came in for either Viv or for Frank. So that particular squad, Gary Mills came and Bryn Gunn. It's so difficult to go away from that particular time. It was so good. It was so good.
One player that I thought you might put in, Greg, just on talent, might have been Van Hooijdonk for the kind of that purple patch he had. Did his conduct afterwards mean you can't put him in?
Yeah, it weren't even a consideration. I struggled with Bohinen because he went to Derby, but no, Van Hooijdonk was a great player, but what he did, he don't belong in any of my teams.
People forget about Frank Tyson, don't they? Arnold Buren and Tyson, when they were at Ipswich, were absolute legends. That partnership in midfield. And then obviously Arnold went to Man United, did really well there. But Frank, was it Frank Frank Tyson? No, it was
Nathan.
No,
Right?
not Nathan Tyson.
No,
No, I
you
know
Birtles,
a guy.
sorry.
Right?
The Dutch. Yeah, is it
Oh.
Franz Tyson? Yeah. Isn't it?
I don't know.
I
We've
don't
gone off on a tangent now. France Tyson, it was.
Tyson, yeah. Yeah, I mean, when we got to the semi-final of the when Anderlecht knocked us out, we had Paul Hart centre half. Then we had Kenny Swain come in. You forget about players like that. We had Colin Walsh on the left hand side. We always had players to replace players. Then Ian Wone, we've mentioned him, came in after that and replaced. Forest were always good at replacing players who were good in those positions. And that's why you look back and you see all those names, and that's what Forest did well at those particular points in their history.
Yeah, have we been a bit cursed, Greg? Have we been a bit cursed by not seeing some of those names?
I was just thinking I should have done one just purely through who's come through our academy, and I think that would have still been a very strong side.
Yeah, true.
I don't think we've cursed. I just think your team overachieved so much, Garry, that we're always looking to be that, the sleeping giant type of thing, where we need to start realising where we are and just hoping we get into the Premier League at some point.
But the thing as well, people thought, oh, well, it wasn't the same game in those days. But you look at the teams we played against in those, the great Liverpool side, nobody could beat them. You look at the QPR side at that particular point with Stan Bowles in there and Jerry Francis. Went through that QPR team and it was absolutely magnificent. And all the teams, Everton, when they had, when Andy Gray was there, when Sharpie was there, they had Peter Reid in midfield. Fantastic teams. We played against some really good players in that generation. The Ipswich team with Mick Mills and Russell Osman and Terry Butcher. Eric Gates up front, Alan Brazil. David Johnson. They were hell of teams at that particular point. They had really top class players in their teams. People forget about that. Manchester United were on a bit of a downer at that particular point. But take nothing away from the achievement, because people try to all the time. But I'm just trying to make people aware of how good the oppositions were then. And people say about, well, you only beat Malmo and Hamburg in the finals, but you look at the teams who Hamburg and Malmo beat. I mean, Hamburg were the best team in Europe with Keegan in, and Malmo, they knocked Real Madrid out, I think. So you can only assess at what time you played, and that's why my team has got to be like it is.
Right. Thank you very much, everyone. I think we'll leave it there. Apologies for technical problems. It all seems to happen at once this week with myself and Greg and Garry holding us all together as the linchpin as ever. So appreciate that from both of you. And thanks to everyone who watched some of the comments. I was going to say, do give us a good 5-star review on iTunes, but take into account the technical problems when you do and be generous. We'll be back next week with another full podcast. Hope everyone has a good week in the meantime, and we'll see you all soon.